Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lithium Pirate Radio Pod, Episode 1. My name is Clay. I am the founder of Lithium. We're doing a blockchain, Layer 1 blockchain, with the type of consensus we call proof of performance. We're in testnet now, and I've been in the space since 2013, building the space since 2017, 20 years in software, and we're going to be doing a couple shows on the official Lithium channel. But this one is, just a podcast where we can kind of talk about whatever's on our mind. And today I've got this post by the Rosium, who apparently is involved with this trusted execution environment network called 10, which is, I guess, part of the Ethereum ecosystem. And he or she has written a post about TPS, and so we're going to be talking about this. I saw this a few days ago and wanted to react to it, and then one of our community members sent it to me and said, you probably would like to react to this. So I gave it a quick look through, and there's really a lot that I want to say here, more than I can fit into a post. So I figure, let's just record it. So here we are. So I'm just going to be reading through this for you and reacting as I go. So the great TPS lie, crypto's obsession with solving problems nobody has. Every week, another L1 or L2 launches with the same claim. We can process 100,000 transactions per second. Sometimes it's 50,000, sometimes it's 1 million. The specific number doesn't matter because it's almost always bullshit. The transaction speed demeasuring contest. I like how she or he censored out the word here, but then added the screenshot. The scalability wars have devolved into crypto's most embarrassing contest. Each new protocol must claim higher TPS than the last, regardless of whether these speeds are actually achievable outside AWS testnet, meaningful for any real-world application, or necessary for anything humans would actually use. This obsession with throughput is crypto's version of daily driving a Lambo through rush hour. Specs aren't the problem, context is. So, off the bat, I have a lot of sympathy for this author. There are so many layer 1s and layer 2s talking about TPS, and it's really hard to make sense of the noise because nobody really has got a good explanation of how they're achieving TPS without sacrificing the decentralization, because we're all in this paradigm, right? The trilemma, you got to choose one or the other. So yeah, I don't know how anybody who's not in the industry and not technical is meant to even care at all or approach this stuff. Even someone who is in the industry and is technical, I didn't really start deep diving into the way some of these alt L1s, L2s work until I had to, because I was trying to build my own and I wanted to make sure, we weren't retreading other solutions. Yeah, it's a big nightmare. And the other thing, we'll talk about this later, is the white papers. They're more about trying to prove how clever you are and less about actually trying to explain how these things work. And I think, yeah, there's good reason that people are talking about TPS, but we'll get into that more. So let's talk real numbers. All right, Visa, the global payments behemoth handling transactions for literally billions of people, processes about 1,700 transactions per second on average. Their theoretical maximum is around 24K, but they've never needed that capacity in decades of operation. Meanwhile, most blockchain projects struggle to attract even 100 daily active users. If your Discord has more emoji reactions than your chain has transactions, you might be solving an imaginary problem. Yeah, a lot of sympathy for this. I think it's a bit putting the cart before the horse, because one wonders, if we had the scale from day one, what kind of user experience and what kind of dApps would we have built that would have attracted the people, right? Like, why do you have 100 daily active users? Well, unless you're Aave or Uniswap, you're priced out, right? There's no room for another app on the main chain. And then, if you're going to build something on an alternative network, you're sort of never going to be able to go mainstream because people have never heard of these third tier chains, right? It's Bitcoin. Everybody knows that. Maybe some people have heard of Ethereum, and then there's some weird thing, right? And nobody wants to go there, right? So you've got, a very limited audience to attract to your application if you're anywhere but Ethereum. And if you're on Ethereum, sorry, gas is too expensive. The hidden costs of size queen scalability. So an obsession with theoretical throughput creates real world problems that hurt users. I think this is where I'm going to diverge with Rosie here a bit. So first, there's centralization in disguise. Chasing high DPS often means sacrificing decentralization for the sake of a marketing number. This I 100% agree with. Absolutely. Then comes security theater. In the rush to scale, corners are cut, creating vulnerabilities that will eventually lead to exploits. Those who are in a gas house shouldn't throw stones. I 100% agree with this, except that it's also, everyone is guilty of this. The JSON API specification that everyone uses to communicate with the blockchains is centralized. It doesn't provide any way of the wallet being able to independently verify the correctness of the data. They're calling this the data availability problem now in the Ethereum ecosystem. Fine. It hasn't been solved. We kind of had a solution with Section 8 of the Bitcoin white paper. I don't know that wallets actually implement that, but simple payment verification. You have the block header with proof of work. You can see that it's a difficult hash, and you can hash it yourself and see that it comes out correct, and it is very difficult. And so you kind of know that block header is correct. And with the Merkle root in the block header, you can then get a Merkle proof of your transaction, and you know that your transaction was in that block. We threw all that out because proof of scale, proof of stake. And, nobody seems to call that out. Right. So, I think this is very, very true. And this is one of the reasons Lithium exists, but I think some of us should be a little more mindful when we're making this claim. If you're, in the Ethereum ecosystem and saying that we shouldn't cut corners. Well, MetaMask, Infura, hello, JSON RPC. This is garbage. Okay. Next is engineering brain drain. Instead of building things users actually need, top talent is stuck optimizing for synthetic benchmarks. Yes, it is true. And I think there is a lot of, development happening on certain ecosystems, but it's sort of a lot of vaporware being built. And, a lot of people say that we need more developers in this community, in this ecosystem. But the thing is, when you have a blockchain that goes at the speed of an Apple II, and everyone on the planet is supposed to use that same chain, you don't actually need a lot of developers, right? You build Uniswap, you build an exchange that uses an actual order book, and then you realize that doesn't actually work. So you compromise the user experience with this crap we call automatic market making and act like it's something brilliant when actually you're just desperate to save gas costs. Call that Uniswap, deploy it. Somebody else builds Aave, and you're pretty much done. You don't need any more dApp developers. You've got the 2 dApps that your chain can support, and everything else is priced out. Somebody else writes CryptoKitties. They realize that was a huge mistake, and they're still struggling to find a place where they can deploy that. So, I don't know. We definitely have a talent problem, but I think that the way this industry operates is a red flag to a lot of good engineers, and good engineers aren't going to come build on a chain that, they read the white paper and it's just a bunch of words trying to prove how clever you are that doesn't actually explain how any of it works. And finally, outright deception. Networks promote loud numbers that collapse under real world conditions. I don't think that's actually a big problem. If you're honest about how the benchmark was run, then we can all get, a sense of what the reality is. But just if your measurement of what layer 2 is better than what other layer 2 is just looking at the TPS, then that's terrible, right? The most high throughput blockchain will be proof of authority with 3 nodes, and they just subsidize the RPC costs amongst the 3 players, and then it can go as fast as you are willing to pay for it. The uncomfortable truth. The obsession with extreme scalability exists for 2 reasons. You need impressive sounding tech to justify your $100 million raise, and you're desperately trying to differentiate your blockchain in the market with 5,000 other options. Yeah, 100% agree with this. this is what the white papers sound like when I read them. They're not actually ever trying to explain like what the problem is that they're solving. There are some notable exceptions. I would say multiverse is sort of okay, although I hate the tech. The white paper at least kind of explains it a little bit. Solana, not too bad. Obviously Ethereum, they're explaining it, but they're not also claiming to have scale. Users' needs are an afterthought. The real play is making retail believe you're the end game, with VCs backing your TPS narrative as your loudest KOLs. Yeah, I mean, the VC market is, they have certain needs, and you know, they have timelines, and they need an exit. Building something that matters. If you're actually building in this space, here's your reality check. Focus on making something that wouldn't exist without blockchain. Design economics that don't require new suckers to buy in every month. Create interfaces that don't make normal humans want to break their laptops, and build at the scale your actual use case requires, not what sounds impressive in a pitch deck. So, well, this sounds like a layer 1 or layer 2 scalability solution, whereas point number one seems more like a user application or dApp. So a bit of a mix here, but I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I think everybody's focusing on making something that wouldn't exist without blockchain. The problem is, how do you pay for it, right? And, you know, that to me is the real crux of this. And there's this focus on like, oh, if we just built the right app, then suddenly everyone in the mainstream will come. You know, I think we could have had 1,000 mainstream apps by now, dApps, if we could have scaled for the last 8 years, right? We were going mainstream. The blockchain killed itself because it couldn't scale. That's in the case of Ethereum and in the case of Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you could buy flights, I bought contact lenses, I bought medication from India. You could buy, I believe the Microsoft Store was accepting Bitcoin on chain, no Lightning Network, just normal transactions in pre-2017. Patrick Byrne, Overstock.com, I think was accepting Bitcoin at one point in time. Look into his story. That's very interesting. You know, he knows why we need an exit from the fiat system. But anyway, that's another podcast. Design economics that don't require new suckers to buy in every month. I mean, yeah. It's very hard to build a USP other than degen gambling, because everything else is priced out. If you don't think you're going to make $1,000 on this transaction, you're not willing to pay a $10 or $100 gas fee. So that's what the industry has become. Great interfaces that don't make normal humans want to break their laptops. Now, this is one that really we need to talk about, because people don't realize how much they think, you know, you just make the user interface better and then it'll fix it. But scale affects everything in this industry. It's something I keep telling people. You know, why does Uniswap suck? Well, first of all, I want to post a limit order, not interact with some liquidity pool. Okay. I mean, we go around acting like this is some sort of a genius thing. Wow, we invented liquidity pools and automatic market making. It's horrible. It's not a market. I want an order book, right? I want to place a limit order. I want to execute my order and know what's gonna happen, right? So you put in the slippage, and then you get MEV'd. So, all right, what do? Oh, I'll decrease my slippage. Then you pay for the gas for a revert. It's like, this is why the user experience is broken, because everyone's so desperate to save a little bit of gas that you compromise on everything. Like, it affects so much in the space, you know, this slippage, the race, you know, even the block time, right? Why is it 12 seconds, right? Could we do better if we had scale? I think certainly we could. We could build more interesting games too that would maybe solve some of these problems, right? I mean, what if my market orders go through some type of entity that's running a different type of game theory, you know, that can only exist in the block production, right? And then, you know, your order book limit orders go through the normal transaction flow, right? Well, that's a lot of extra on-chain stuff, collateral, game that has to happen on chain potentially, right? But we can't build that because we can barely afford to run liquidity pools. Build at the scale your actual use case requires, not what sounds impressive as a pitch deck. I mean, I don't know who this is actually talking to. If you're building a dApp, you're not talking about scale usually. Although I guess with everybody now rolling out a whole blockchain for every dApp idea they have, maybe this makes sense. But if you're building a layer 2, scalability solution, or a layer 1, your use case is as a platform. And so the more, the better in theory, right? So there's all that. But yeah, this whole idea of like there being some kind of a top-down number, like, oh, our chain does 500,000. Like, well, you decided that, right? And you just kind of arbitrarily decided like RPC nodes are going to cost $10,000 a month because we want to go faster than Solana or whatever, right? It's the scale shouldn't be sort of Soviet style top down dictated by the team or the consensus. The scalability reality check. The next time a project boasts about processing 500,000 TPS, ask what are all those transactions actually doing? Who's generating them? What's for what purpose? When they start mumbling about future adoption in Web3 social, you'll have your answer. Real innovation isn't about theoretical performance in a vacuum. It's about building something people actually need at a scale appropriate for that need. Everything else is just expensive performance art masquerading as technology. I mean, I get where this is coming from, but again, my whole reaction to this is it's putting the cart before the horse. It's assuming that if you build the user experience, then you can justify the scale, but that doesn't make any sense. You need the scale first, then you can build cool stuff, right? So I don't agree with this at all. I'm not sure like what, there's kind of a conflation between like dApp scale and platform scale, which makes no sense to me. But one thing that Litheum definitely has to contend with is answering this question, because the way proof of performance works is that the more fees that are generated, the more secure the chain gets, right? We unify the difficulty and the scale into one thing. So rather than having $100 billion of hash, that's just difficult for the sake of being difficult, solving a problem that's difficult for the sake of being difficult. We hope to have billions of dollars worth of RPC service, which serves also as the difficulty. So as the chain gets more secure, it also gets more performant. So, there's a win-win which exists on Litheum, which is unlike other chains. The more usage the chain has, the more secure it gets. So, yeah, it's a good article. I understand the frustration because I feel it a lot myself. Everybody's claiming these numbers. Nobody's talking about the fundamentals, but I think that this article really shows that the author wasn't around in 2017, doesn't realize, I think, how existential this problem is for the industry. The industry, right? It's like, if we're going to call ourselves an industry, we have to do something. We have to build something that's actually useful. And Bitcoin, Ethereum can only process about 1 million transactions per day. It would take 30 years for everyone on the planet to do just one transaction on one of those networks. So this has been something that blocks everything that could have been. Every cool idea that somebody had, they just didn't build it. I wanted to build Reddit with the Karma on chain, right? Didn't build it. Why? It needs more than Ethereum alone, right? The gas costs would be, you can't even say they'd be astronomical. It just doesn't work no matter how much people would be willing to pay. So, there's a bit of a, and here's the other thing, those chains are limited for good reason. I mean, I think that people don't necessarily understand the reason. I don't think people have really gotten to the bottom of like, what is the fundamental reason that we intentionally limit blockchains? And that's something we're going to talk about a lot on the Litheum channel here, but they sense that something is wrong, right? People kind of know that some of these other high scale chains are in a sense centralized and you can't really trust them, right? They might not understand exactly why that is, but the reasons that Bitcoin and Ethereum stayed limited are legitimate. And without that, without that scale, how do you build anything that's interesting? Visa. We should have replaced Visa by now. We've been talking about Visa for over a decade in this industry, and we still can't achieve that. That is just really calls into question everything. So, we think Lithium can solve this kind of stuff, but, we're not there yet. We're still in testnet. If you want to learn more about Lithium, by the way, our testnet is actually live. We haven't really announced it yet. You can join our builders program to get a sneak peek at our white paper and access to our Lithium book, which has some technical details about what we're doing. And you can earn some points for running your dApp and doing some transactions on testnet, and get access to our sprint updates. So we're going to be publishing videos like this that are private for the builders, just so they kind of know where we're at and get a look at the sort of the dev roadmap, at least, if not the sort of go-to-market roadmap. So if you're interested in that, it's easy to sign up. Just go check out the website. We haven't launched it yet, but probably by the time you see this video, it should be up. Just fill in the form, let us know what you're trying to build, and you can check it out. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Like I said, we're going to be doing multiple different shows on Lithium's channel. So this one's the podcast where we're kind of freeform. We're also going to be doing one where we try to explain blockchain to pretty much everyone. It's like an explain like on 5 version of how blockchains work. We think we have a different perspective on that because we've been trying to build a consensus with a sort of a first principles approach to the consensus design that I think has helped us sort of see the game that we call consensus a little more clearly than others from a different perspective. I've been trying to explain proof of performance to people for years now. So I think that'll be really valuable to people. We think we can give an explanation of blockchains that requires like no technical knowledge. And then we're also going to be doing another show where we just deep dive on Lithium itself and explain really how it works. Because one of the things we believe is that if you're asking people to build on chain or put their capital onto chain, they have to understand how it works to trust it. And so it's very important for us to also educate. And so I think those two things are going to be really valuable to people, even if they're not necessarily interested in Lithium. And this pod hopefully is just a bit of fun. Maybe you learned a little bit of something. Like I said, we're just going to be talking about a lot of just kind of random things that come up. We always have an opinion about, the memes that are floating around and whatever else. So hopefully a little bit of insight there and a bit of fun. So thanks for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.